Hash the human janitor sketched a smiley face on his glove to calm the crying alien girl. She smiled again. The space station called Eternal Horizon was old. It floated near a dying star, far from the busy centers of the galaxy. Thousands of aliens from hundreds of different worlds passed through it every day. They came to trade, to rest, or to catch another ship going somewhere else. The station was like a giant metal city in space, with tall towers and long halls and levels that went down and down into darkness. Most people stayed on the upper levels. Those levels had bright lights, clean air, and nice restaurants. Important aliens walked there in expensive clothes. Diplomats made deals. Merchants sold rare goods from distant planets. It was a busy, noisy, living place. But the lower levels were different. The lower levels were dark and quiet. The air there smelled old, like rust and recycled water. The walls had stains that nobody cleaned anymore. The lights flickered sometimes, and strange sounds came from broken pipes. Most aliens never went down there. They had no reason to. This was where Do-Yun worked. Do-Yun was a human man of 32 years. He was not tall and not short. His hair was black and always a little messy. His face was plain and forgettable. He wore a gray uniform that was faded from too many washes and heavy boots that made soft sounds on the metal floor. Every day, Do-Yun pushed his cleaning cart through the forgotten corridors. He mopped floors that nobody walked on. He fixed pipes that nobody cared about. He cleaned walls that nobody looked at. It was lonely work, but Do-Yun did not mind. He liked the quiet. He liked being alone with his thoughts. Humans were still new to the galaxy. They had only joined the Galactic Union 40 years ago. Most alien species thought humans were primitive. Humans were not as strong as the rock-skinned Gorath. They were not as smart as the four-brained Mentari. They could not see in the dark like the Velith or breathe underwater like the Deepkin. To most aliens, humans were good for simple work: cleaning, carrying boxes, fixing things that broke. Do-Yun knew what others thought of him. He saw it in their eyes when they looked at him, or more often when they looked through him as if he was not there at all. But he had learned not to care. The pay was steady. The work was honest. And down here in the forgotten levels, nobody bothered him. On this particular evening, Do-Yun was cleaning a ventilation panel on level 47. Black carbon had built up on the metal, making it hard for air to flow through. He sprayed cleaning solution and scrubbed with a rough cloth, watching the black marks slowly disappear. The corridor was silent except for the hum of distant machines. Do-Yun worked slowly, taking his time. There was no rush. There never was. Then he heard it. At first he thought it was a broken machine. It sounded like wind chimes, but wrong, like wind chimes being crushed. The sound was high and thin and full of pain. Do-Yun stopped scrubbing. He listened. The sound came again, and this time he understood what it was. Someone was crying. He put down his cloth and followed the sound. It led him down a side corridor he rarely visited, past old cargo pods that had not been moved in years. The crying grew louder. It was not human crying. The sound was too strange for that, but it was crying. Do-Yun was sure of it. Behind a stack of rusted cargo containers, he found her. She was small, very small. She sat with her knees pulled up to her chest and her thin arms wrapped around them. Her skin was pale blue like the color of a winter sky, and it seemed to shimmer slightly in the dim light. Her hair was white and fell around her face like silk threads. She had no nose that Do-Yun could see, just two small slits above a tiny mouth. But her eyes were huge. They were dark and deep, like looking into pools of black water. Do-Yun recognized her species. She was Velith. The Velith were known throughout the galaxy as empaths. They could feel the emotions of others as if those emotions were their own. Joy made them glow. Sadness made them dim. Strong emotions could even hurt them. Because of this, Velith rarely traveled far from their homeworld. The galaxy was too loud, too harsh, too full of feelings that cut like knives. A Velith child, alone on a space station, that should have been impossible. But here she was. The moment she saw Do-yun, her crying changed. It became sharper, higher, more desperate. She pressed herself against the wall, trying to push herself further into the corner. Her whole body shook. Her shimmering skin flickered rapidly, like a broken light. She was terrified. Do-yun stopped walking. He was still 3 meters away from her, but he understood that even that was too close. She did not know him. She did not trust him. To her, he was just another stranger in a strange place, one more source of pain in a galaxy full of it. Slowly, very slowly, Do-yun lowered himself to the floor. He sat down on the cold metal, crossing his legs. He put his hands on his knees where she could see them. He made himself small, unthreatening. "Hey," he said softly. His voice was gentle, the way one might speak to a scared animal. "It is okay. I am not going to hurt you." The words meant nothing to her. His translator was old and cheap, and it probably could not handle the Velith language properly. But he hoped his tone would help. He hoped she could feel that he meant no harm. The girl's crying did not stop, but it changed slightly. She was watching him now, her dark eyes fixed on his face. She was still shaking, still pressed against the wall, but she had stopped trying to push herself away. That was something. Do-yun did not move. He just sat there, quiet and patient. He had no idea what to do next. He knew he should probably call station security. The rules were clear about unaccompanied children of any species. Report them immediately. Let the authorities handle it. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the way she looked at him, not just with fear, but with exhaustion. The kind of exhaustion that came from being afraid for too long. Maybe it was the dirt on her clothes and the thinness of her arms, signs that she had been alone and hungry for days. Maybe it was the bruise on her shoulder, barely visible under her torn shirt, that told him someone had grabbed her hard enough to hurt. Whatever it was, Do-yun made a decision. He would not call security, not yet, not until he understood what was really happening. For now, he would just sit. He would wait. He would let this scared little girl decide for herself whether to trust him. The minutes passed slowly. The girl's crying softened. It did not stop, but it was not as loud now, not as sharp. She was still watching him with those dark, deep eyes, still shaking, still afraid. But she was not running. And Do-yun, who had spent years being invisible and unimportant, who had accepted his place at the bottom of the galaxy, felt something stir in his chest. Something protective, something human. He did not know this child. He did not know her name or her story or why she was alone in a forgotten corridor on a space station far from anywhere. But he knew one thing. He was going to help her. The human janitor sketched a smiley face on his glove to calm the crying alien girl. She smiled again. Do-yun sat on the cold metal floor for a long time. His legs started to hurt, but he did not move. The little Velith girl watched him from her corner, her dark eyes never leaving his face. Her crying had become quieter now, but tears still ran down her blue cheeks. They were not clear like human tears. They shimmered with faint light, like tiny drops of liquid starlight. He needed to do something, but what? Do-yun had no training for this. He was a janitor. He cleaned floors and fixed broken pipes. He did not know how to comfort a scared alien child. He did not know what Velith children ate, or what language they spoke, or what would make them feel safe. He only knew that this girl was afraid and alone, and that sitting here doing nothing was not enough. He thought about what he had. His cleaning cart was too far away to reach without moving. In his pockets, he had his identification card, some spare coins, a small flashlight, and a black marker. The marker was for labeling chemical containers. Nothing useful, nothing that could help. Or was there? An idea came to him. It was silly. It was stupid. A grown man should not even think of such things. But Do-yun had nothing else to try, and the girl was still crying, and doing something stupid was better than doing nothing at all. Slowly, making sure she could see every movement, he raised his right hand. He wore thick rubber gloves, standard equipment for cleaning work. The gloves were yellow and worn, with small stains from chemicals and dirt. He held up his palm toward the girl, showing her there was nothing dangerous in his hand. Then, very carefully, he pulled the black marker from his pocket. The girl tensed. Her shimmering skin flickered with fear. She did not know what the marker was. She did not know what he was going to do with it. Do-yun moved slowly. He uncapped the marker. He pressed it against the palm of his glove, and carefully he drew two small dots near the top of his palm where fingers met hand. Eyes. Below them he drew a curved line. A smile. It was the simplest picture in the world. Two dots and a curve. A face that meant happiness. A symbol that humans had used for hundreds of years to say, everything is okay. The girl watched him with confusion in her dark eyes. She did not understand. Do-yun took a breath. Then he raised his gloved hand and made it bob up and down, like the simple face was nodding at her. He wiggled his fingers, making the face seem alive. Then in a silly high voice, he made the face talk. "Hello," he said, moving his fingers so the face seemed to move. "My name is Glow. I am a friendly hand. What is your name?" The girl blinked. Her crying stuttered. She was still watching him, but something had changed in her eyes. The fear was still there, but now there was something else too. Confusion, curiosity. Do-yun made the hand face look around nervously, turning left and right as if checking for danger. Then the face noticed the girl and jumped back in surprise, the whole hand jerking backward. "Oh," he said in the silly voice, "a person Glow is shy. Glow will hide now." He tucked the hand behind his other hand, making it peek out slowly, as if it was scared to come out. A sound escaped the girl, not crying, not quite a laugh, just a small hiccup of air surprised out of her. Do-yun felt a spark of hope. He made the face peek out more, then quickly hide again. Peek and hide, like a game, like a child playing behind a door. The girl's tears slowed. She was watching the hand face with wide eyes, her shimmering skin steadier now. Do-yun made the face come all the way out and do a little dance, flopping from side to side in a clumsy, silly way. He made the face spin in a circle, then trip over nothing and fall flat against his other palm. "Oops," he said in the silly voice. "Glow is not a good dancer." And then it happened. The girl smiled. It was small. It was shaky. It barely reached her eyes, but her tiny mouth curved upward, and for one moment the fear on her face was replaced by something softer. Do-yun felt his heart squeeze tight in his chest. He made the face jump up again and take a bow. "Glow is happy to meet you," he said. "Glow thinks you have a very pretty smile." The girl's smile wobbled. It almost disappeared, but it held on, fragile as spider silk. For the next hour, Do-yun sat on that cold floor and performed the silliest puppet show of his life. He made the hand face tell jokes that probably did not translate. He made it dance and fall and get confused. He made it ask the girl questions she could not answer, then pretend to answer them itself in ridiculous ways. "What is your favorite color?" the face asked. It waited. "No answer. Glow thinks you like purple. No wait, green. No wait, the color of happy dreams." The girl did not speak, but she watched, and slowly she began to relax. Her shimmering skin stopped flickering, her shaking eased. She uncurled slightly, her thin arms loosening around her knees. When Do-yun's arm finally got too tired to continue, he lowered his hand and let out a breath. His muscles ached. His back hurt from sitting on the hard floor, but when he looked at the girl, she was no longer crying. She was still watching him with those deep, dark eyes, but the raw terror was gone. In its place was something careful, something uncertain, but not afraid. Not of him, at least. Do-yun smiled at her, a real smile from his real face. "Hi," he said quietly. "My name is Do-yun. I am a janitor. I clean things." He pointed at himself, then mimed scrubbing a floor. "I am not going to hurt you. I want to help." The girl did not respond, but she looked at his gloved hand, the one with the smiley face still drawn on it. She reached out one thin, trembling finger and pointed at it. Do-yun understood. He raised the hand again and showed her the simple drawing, 2 dots, 1 curved line, a face made of nothing but hope and kindness. "This is Glow," he said softly. "Glow is your friend now, and so am I." The girl looked at the face for a long moment. Then she looked at Do-yun, and for the first time she made a sound that was not crying. It was a word, a single word in a language his cheap translator struggled to process. But after a moment, a rough translation appeared in his ear. "Friend." Do-yun nodded. His eyes stung. He blinked rapidly. "Yes," he said, "friend." The girl's smile returned. It was still small, still fragile, but it was real. And in that forgotten corridor, on a space station far from anywhere that mattered, a human janitor and a lost alien child made a connection that needed no words. Do-yun did not know what would happen next. He did not know who this girl was, or where she came from, or how she had ended up alone in the dark. He did not know how he was going to help her, or if he even could. But none of that mattered right now. Right now she was not crying anymore. Right now she was smiling. And right now that was enough. He would figure out the rest tomorrow. For tonight he would just be here. He would just be a friend. The smiley face on his glove looked back at him, 2 dots and a curve, the simplest symbol of hope in the universe. Do-yun smiled back at it. Sometimes, he thought, the simplest things were the most powerful. The human janitor sketched a smiley face on his glove to calm the crying alien girl. She smiled again. Her name was Lyra. It took Do-yun 3 days to learn this. His old translator was not made for the Velith language, and Lyra spoke very little common, the shared language of the galaxy. But slowly, through broken words and many gestures, they began to understand each other. Lyra was 6 cycles old. The translator told him this was close to 8 human years. She was young, too young to be alone, too young to have the kind of tired, careful look in her dark eyes. She had been on the station for 2 weeks before Do-yun found her. 2 weeks of hiding in shadows. 2 weeks of eating food scraps from garbage bins. 2 weeks of running from security guards who saw her as a problem to be processed, not a child to be helped. The story of how she got here came out in pieces, like a puzzle slowly coming together. Lyra and her family had been on a refugee transport ship. Her people were fleeing from a war that had reached their colony world, a small planet on the edge of known space. The ship was old and crowded, full of Velith families trying to escape to somewhere safe. But something had gone wrong. Lyra did not know the details. She was too young to understand. All she knew was that there had been loud noises and flashing lights. The ship had shaken. People had screamed. Her mother had grabbed her and pushed her toward a small escape pod, telling her to get inside, telling her she would be right behind her. But her mother never came. The pod had launched automatically. Lyra had floated alone in the darkness for days, crying until she had no tears left. When the pod was finally found by a cargo ship, the crew had dropped her off at the nearest station, Eternal Horizon, and left. They had not wanted to deal with a lost alien child. She was not their problem. The station authorities had processed her through their refugee system. They had given her a number and put her in a waiting area with hundreds of other displaced people. But Lyra was small and scared and could not stop crying. Her crying hurt the other refugees, who could not handle the emotions she projected. They pushed her away. They told her to be quiet. They told her to leave. So she ran. She found the lower levels where nobody went. She hid in the shadows in the forgotten places. She stole food when she could and went hungry when she could not. She cried herself to sleep every night, alone in the dark. Until Do-yun found her. Now, sitting in his small quarters on level 43, Do-yun watched Lyra eat a protein bar. She ate slowly, carefully, as if she expected someone to take the food away from her. Her thin hands trembled slightly as she held the bar. Do-Yun's quarters were not much. A small room with a bed, a desk, and a tiny bathroom. The walls were plain gray metal. The only decoration was a photograph of a beach on Earth, a place Do-Yun had never been but liked to imagine. But to Lyra this small room seemed like a palace. There was a bed with blankets. There was light that did not flicker. There was food and water and a door that locked from the inside. For the first time in weeks, she was safe. She finished the protein bar and looked at Do-Yun with her dark, trusting eyes. "Mother," she asked, her voice small and hopeful. Her translator turned it into a word he could understand. "Fine, mother." Do-Yun's heart hurt. He wanted to say yes. He wanted to promise her everything would be okay, but he did not know if her mother was alive. He did not know where the refugee ship had gone or if it had survived at all. He did not want to give her false hope. But he also could not bear to see that hopeful look fade. "I will try," he said carefully. "I will look for your mother. I will do my best." Lyra smiled. It was still small, still fragile, but it was there. She trusted him. This child, who had every reason to never trust anyone again, trusted him. Do-Yun made a silent promise to himself. He would find her family, no matter what it took. The next morning, Do-Yun went to the station's main administration office. It was on level 3, far above his usual territory. The halls here were clean and bright. The aliens walking past wore fine clothes and looked at him with mild confusion, wondering what a janitor was doing in such an important place. He waited in line for 2 hours. When he finally reached the front desk, a bored-looking alien with gray skin and 6 eyes barely glanced at him. "What do you want?" the official asked. "I need to access refugee records," Do-Yun said. "There is a lost child. I need to find her family." The official blinked several of its eyes. "Refugee records are restricted. What is your clearance level?" "I am a janitor." "Then you do not have clearance." The official waved a hand dismissively. "File a report with security. They will handle it." "But the child has been lost for 2 weeks," Do-Yun said. "She was in the system and nobody helped her. Security does not care. Please, I just need to find." "Next," the official said loudly, looking past Do-Yun to the person behind him. Do-Yun stood there for a moment, anger building in his chest. Then he took a breath and walked away. He had expected this. Janitors did not get access to important records. Janitors did not get to ask questions. Janitors were invisible, unimportant, easily ignored. But Do-Yun was also human. And humans, as the galaxy would slowly learn, did not give up easily. His friend Yuna worked in the station's communications center. She was a human engineer, one of the few humans on the station with a real technical job. They had met 3 years ago, when Do-Yun had fixed a clogged drain in her department. She had been the only person to thank him. Do-Yun found her during her lunch break, sitting alone in a small cafeteria on level 20. "I need a favor," he said, sitting across from her. Yuna raised an eyebrow. She was a small woman with short hair and sharp eyes. "What kind of favor?" "The kind that could get you in trouble." Yuna smiled. "Those are the most interesting kind, tell me." Do-Yun told her about Lyra, about finding her in the dark, about the smiley face and the protein bars and the small room that was now her temporary home, about the refugee ship and the mother who might still be alive somewhere. When he finished, Yuna was quiet for a moment. "That is a hard situation," she said. "The refugee databases are locked down tight. War displacement records are even more restricted. Even if I wanted to help, I am not sure I could find anything." "But you could try." Yuna looked at him. Her sharp eyes softened slightly. "You really care about this kid, do you not?" "She has nobody else," Do-Yun said simply. Yuna sighed, then she nodded. "I will see what I can do. No promises, but I will try." 3 days later, Yuna called him with news. I found something, she said. The refugee transport, it was called the Bright Journey. There was an engine failure. The ship broke apart, but most of the passengers made it to escape pods. A rescue fleet picked them up and relocated them to a settlement on a planet called Veth 4. It is 3 systems away. Do-yun's heart jumped. And Lyra's mother, is she there? I cannot confirm individual names, Yuna said. The records do not go that deep, but if her mother survived, she would be there. That night Do-yun sat with Lyra and told her what he had learned. He spoke slowly, using simple words, letting his translator do its best. Your mother might be alive, he said. She might be on a planet far from here. I do not know for sure, but I want to take you there. I want to help you find her. Lyra listened with wide eyes. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and touched the smiley face on his glove, the same one he still wore every day. Friend takes me, she asked. Yes, Do-yun said, friend takes you. And for the first time since he found her, Lyra laughed. It was a small sound like silver bells, but it was the most beautiful sound Do-yun had ever heard. The human janitor sketched a smiley face on his glove to calm the crying alien girl. She smiled again. Getting to Veth 4 was not going to be easy. The planet was 3 systems away. That meant 3 separate hyperspace jumps, each one costing more money than Do-yun made in a month. A ticket for 1 passenger was expensive. 2 tickets, one for a human and one for a child, would cost him half a year of savings. Do-yun had savings. He was not rich, but he was careful with money. For 10 years, he had been putting aside small amounts from each paycheck. He had a dream of someday buying his own small ship and leaving the station life behind. Nothing fancy, just a little vessel that could take him wherever he wanted to go. That dream would have to wait. He counted his savings. It was almost enough for 2 tickets. Almost, but not quite. He was short by about 300 credits. 300 credits. It was not a huge amount, but for a janitor it might as well have been a mountain. Do-yun did not waste time feeling sorry for himself. He had a week before the next transport ship left for Veth 4. 1 week to find the money. 1 week to make this work. He started by taking extra shifts. His supervisor, Tisik, was an older human man who had been on the station for 20 years. He had a rough voice and rough hands, but a kind heart hidden under his gruff manner. Why do you need extra work? Tisik asked when Do-yun came to him. You already work more hours than anyone else. Do-yun explained about Lyra, about finding her, about the search, about the trip to Veth 4. Tisik listened without interrupting. When Do-yun finished, the old man was quiet for a long moment. You are a good kid, Tisik finally said. Stupid, but good. Most people would have called security and forgotten about it. She needed help, Do-yun said simply. Tisik shook his head slowly. Then he pulled out his tablet and began typing. I can give you double shifts for the next 5 days. That will add maybe 100 credits to your pay. It is not enough, but it is something. Thank you, Do-yun said. Tisik waved him off. Thank me by not passing out from exhaustion. Now get to work. Word spread quickly among the human community on the station. There were not many humans on Eternal Horizon, maybe 200 among the tens of thousands of aliens. They worked as janitors and cargo handlers and low-level technicians. They lived in the cheaper quarters and ate at the cheaper restaurants. They were invisible to most of the station, just another species doing the jobs nobody else wanted. But they knew each other, and when one of them needed help, the others listened. Bora was the first to offer. She was an elderly woman who ran a small food stall on level 7. Her noodles were famous among the human workers, cheap, filling, and delicious. She had been on the station even longer than Tisik, and she knew everyone. I heard about your little girl, she said when Do-yun came to buy lunch. Bring her here. I will feed her for free until you leave. A child should not eat protein bars every day. I cannot ask you to, Doyun started. You are not asking, Bora interrupted. I am telling, bring the child, let me help. Doyun brought Lyra to Bora's stall that evening. The old woman took one look at the thin, shy alien girl and immediately began cooking. She made a special broth, mild and gentle, testing it carefully to make sure it would not upset a Velith's stomach. Lyra ate 3 bowls. When she was done, she looked at Bora with wonder in her dark eyes. She did not know how to say thank you in any language the old woman would understand. So instead, she pointed at her stomach and smiled. Bora laughed and patted Lyra's head gently. Good girl, she said. You come back tomorrow, and the day after, eat as much as you want. Others helped too. A cargo handler named Jiwoo gave Doyun 50 credits. I was going to spend it on drinks anyway, he said with a shrug. This is a better use. A technician named Yoonji offered to watch Lyra when Doyun was working his double shifts. I have 2 kids back on Earth, she said. I know how to take care of children. Your girl will be safe with me. A young mechanic named Hyuk, who Doyun barely knew, showed up at his quarters one evening with a bag of clothes. They are from my niece, he said. She outgrew them years ago. They might fit your alien friend. The clothes did not fit perfectly. Lyra was shaped differently than a human child, thinner, longer-limbed. But she wore them anyway and smiled when she looked at herself in the mirror. They were the first real clothes she had owned since leaving her home. On the 4th day, something unexpected happened. Doyun was mopping a corridor on level 15 when a tall figure approached him. It was an alien, a Velith, with pale blue skin and flowing white hair. He wore elegant robes of silver and gold and walked with the careful grace of someone important. Doyun stopped mopping and bowed slightly. A Velith in such fine clothes was probably a diplomat or a wealthy merchant, not the kind of person who usually spoke to janitors. You are the human, the Velith said. His voice was soft and musical. The one who found the child. Doyun straightened. Yes, her name is Lyra. I know. The Velith studied him with deep, dark eyes, eyes that reminded Doyun of Lyra's but older, wiser. I am Harin. I work at the Velith embassy on this station. Word has reached us about what you are doing for this child. Doyun did not know what to say. I am just trying to help, he said finally. Yes, Harin said. That is what I find interesting. He reached into his robe and pulled out a small chip. This is 500 credits. It should be enough to cover your remaining costs. Doyun stared at the chip. I cannot accept this. It is too much. You can and you will. Harin pressed the chip into Doyun's hand. My people have a saying, kindness given freely returns tenfold. You showed kindness to a child of my species when you had no reason to. When others ignored her when the system failed her, you stopped. You sat on a cold floor and drew a smile on your glove. Do you understand how rare that is? I just did what anyone would do, Doyun said. Harin shook his head slowly. No, you did what almost no one does. That is why I am here. He turned to leave, then paused. Take good care of her, human. Help her find her family. And know that my people will not forget what you have done. Doyun stood in the corridor for a long time after Harin left, holding the chip in his hand. That night he counted his money again. Between his savings, his extra work, the donations from his fellow humans and Harin's gift, he had more than enough. He could buy 2 tickets to Veth 4. He could take Lyra to find her mother. He told Lyra the news before bed. She was wearing the clothes Hyuk had brought, her small body almost swallowed by the slightly too large shirt. She listened with wide eyes, and when he finished, she threw her thin arms around him. It was the first time she had hugged him. Doyun held her carefully, afraid he might break her, but she was stronger than she looked. They all were, it seemed. Thank you, Lyra whispered in broken common. Friend, thank you. Doyun felt tears prick his eyes. He blinked them away. You are welcome, he said softly. Now get some sleep, we have a long trip ahead. Lyra pulled back and looked at him. Then she pointed at the smiley face on his glove. "Glow comes too?" she asked. Do-Yun looked down at the faded drawing. 2 dots, 1 curved line, a simple symbol that had somehow bridged the gap between 2 species, 2 souls, 2 strangers who had become friends. "Yes," he said, smiling, "Glow comes too." Lyra smiled back. And in that small room, on a forgotten level of a space station far from anywhere important, Do-Yun realized something. He had spent years thinking he was alone, thinking he did not matter, thinking he was just a janitor, invisible and unimportant. But he was not alone. He had never been alone. His people, the small community of humans on this station, had gathered around him without being asked. They had given their money, their time, their care. They had shown him what it meant to be part of something bigger than himself. And tomorrow, he would take everything they had given and use it to help one lost child find her way home. That, he thought, was what being human really meant. The human janitor sketched a smiley face on his glove to calm the crying alien girl. She smiled again. The journey to Veth 4 took 6 days. Do-Yun had never traveled so far before. The longest trip he had ever taken was the shuttle ride from Earth to the space station 15 years ago. That had been just 1 hyperspace jump. This was 3, with long waits at transfer stations in between. The transport ship was crowded and uncomfortable. It was not designed for humans, so the seats were the wrong shape and the food was strange. But Lyra stayed close to him the whole time, her small hand often finding his. Whenever she felt scared or overwhelmed by the emotions of the other passengers, she would look at his glove, at the faded smiley face that was now barely visible after so many washes, and calm down. Do-Yun talked to her during the long hours of travel. He told her about Earth, the planet where humans came from. He described the blue oceans and green forests, the cities full of noise and life. He told her about his own childhood, growing up in a small town, playing in the rain, eating his grandmother's cooking. Lyra listened to everything with wonder. She had never seen an ocean or a forest. Her home colony had been a world of ice and stone, where her people lived in underground caves to escape the cold. But she liked hearing about these strange things. She asked questions in her broken words, and Do-Yun answered as best he could. In return, Lyra told him about her family, about her mother, who had gentle hands and a beautiful singing voice, about her father, who had died in the war before Lyra was old enough to remember him, about her older brother, who used to carry her on his shoulders and tell her stories about the stars. "Brother is brave," Lyra said, her dark eyes distant with memory. "He says he will protect me, always protect." "I am sure he did his best," Do-Yun said softly. "Where is brother now?" Lyra asked. Do-Yun did not have an answer. He did not know if Lyra's brother had survived. He did not know if anyone except her mother was still alive. All he could do was hope. "Maybe he is with your mother," he said. "Maybe we will find them both." Lyra nodded, choosing to believe. On the 6th day, the transport ship arrived at Veth 4. The planet was beautiful. It hung in space like a jewel, its surface covered in swirls of purple and blue. It had large oceans and scattered continents, and the air was said to be clean and sweet. The Galactic Union had set up refugee settlements here for displaced populations, offering them a chance to rebuild their lives. The settlement where Lyra's people had been taken was on the northern continent. It was a simple place, rows of prefabricated buildings spread across a flat plain, surrounded by wild grasslands that rippled in the wind. Thousands of Velith lived here now, trying to recover from the war that had destroyed their homes. Do-Yun and Lyra walked through the settlement together. Do-Yun felt out of place. He was the only human for kilometers around, and everyone stared at him with curiosity. But Lyra walked beside him with her head held high, and nobody questioned their presence. They went to the central administration building. Do-Yun explained their situation to the clerk, a tired-looking Velith woman who listened with patient attention. "The child's name is Lyra," Doyun said. "She was on the refugee transport called the Bright Journey. She was separated from her mother during the evacuation. We are trying to find her family." The clerk typed something into her computer. Her eyes scanned the screen. Then she looked up. "We have records of survivors from the Bright Journey," she said. "Many families were separated during the evacuation. Some have been reunited. Others," she paused, "others are still waiting." "Is her mother here?" Doyun asked. His heart was beating fast. The clerk typed again, waited, then slowly she nodded. "There is a woman named Somi in Section 7. She has been searching for a daughter named Lyra for many weeks." Doyun felt all the tension leave his body at once. He turned to Lyra, who was watching him with wide, hopeful eyes. "Your mother is here," he said. "She is alive. She is waiting for you." Lyra did not speak. She just stared at him as if she could not believe what she was hearing. Then her eyes filled with tears, not sad tears but happy ones. They ran down her blue cheeks and shimmered in the light. The clerk gave them directions to Section 7. It was a 15-minute walk through the settlement. Every step felt endless. Lyra held Doyun's hand so tight that his fingers went numb, but he did not complain. When they reached the address, it was a small building like all the others. Plain walls, a simple door, no decorations. But to Lyra, it must have looked like heaven. Doyun knocked. There was a moment of silence. Then the door opened. A Velith woman stood in the doorway. She was tall and thin, with the same pale blue skin and dark eyes as Lyra. She looked tired and worn, like someone who had not slept well in months. Behind her, in the shadows of the small room, Doyun could see a young Velith male, Lyra's brother perhaps. The woman's eyes went to Doyun first, confused by the presence of a human. Then they went to the small figure beside him. She stopped breathing. "Lyra," she whispered. Lyra let go of Doyun's hand. For a moment, she stood frozen, staring at her mother as if afraid this was all a dream. Then she ran. She ran into her mother's arms with a cry that was half sob, half laugh. They held each other so tight that they seemed to become one being, their shimmering skin flickering rapidly with emotions too big to contain. The mother made sounds that Doyun's translator could not process, pure feeling, without words. The brother came forward too. He wrapped his arms around both of them, and suddenly it was a circle of three, holding each other, crying, laughing, alive. Doyun stepped back. He felt tears on his own face, but he did not wipe them away. This was not about him. This was about them. After a long time, the mother, Somi, looked up at him. Her eyes were red and wet, but they were filled with something bright. "You," she said, her voice shaking, "you brought her back to me." "I just showed her the way," Doyun said. "She did most of the work." Somi released her children and walked toward him. She was taller than him, elegant even in her simple refugee clothes. She studied his face for a moment, and he felt something brush against his mind, a gentle touch, testing him, reading him. "You are warm," she said softly. "Your heart, it is very warm." Doyun did not know how to respond. Somi reached out and took his hand, the one with the glove. She looked at the faded, smiley face, the simple drawing that had started everything. "My daughter told me about this," she said. "About the face that made her smile. I thought it was a story, a fantasy, but it is real." "It is just a drawing," Doyun said, embarrassed. "No," Somi shook her head. "It is much more than that." She pressed his hand to her chest, over her heart. "Among my people, this gesture means you are family now, not because of blood, because of choice, because of love." Doyun blinked. "I am just a janitor," he said. Lyra came over and grabbed his other hand. She was smiling, the biggest, brightest smile he had ever seen on her face. "Not janitor," she said. Her comment had improved over the past week. "Friend, family." Doyun looked at the three of them, the mother, the brother, the little girl who had been alone in the dark until he found her. He had come here to help Lyra find her family. He had not expected to find one himself. But here they were, holding his hands, calling him family. "Thank you," Somi said. "Thank you for saving my daughter. Thank you for showing her that there is still kindness in the galaxy." Doyun smiled. It was shaky and wet with tears, but it was real. "You are welcome," he said. And in that moment, on a planet far from anywhere he had ever been, surrounded by people he had never known existed until a few weeks ago, Doyun understood something important. It did not matter that he was just a janitor. It did not matter that he was not smart or strong or important. What mattered was that he had stopped. He had looked at a lost, scared child and decided to help. He had drawn a silly face on his glove and made her smile. That was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything. Years later, when historians wrote about the friendship between humans and the Velith people, they would point to treaties and agreements. They would talk about diplomats and politicians. But those who knew the truth would tell a different story. The story of a janitor and a lost girl. The story of a smiley face on a glove. The story of how the simplest act of kindness changed the galaxy forever. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing in the universe is not strength or wealth or technology. Sometimes it is just a smile, and the willingness to share it with someone who needs it.